Hi students, very good morning. Hope you all are fine and good. So now I think still chapter 7 it's clear for you all. So if you have any doubt you can just come back to me on the online class. Okay, so now let's move on to the next lesson, that is unit 3 chapter 8, financial markets, Securities Exchange Board of India. So what is SEBI? I already explained in the last lesson, I think, the chapter 7. Already we learnt about stock exchange. So I taught you that SEBI is a security body where all the rules and regulations have been monitored and regulated, isn't it? So let's go on with this chapter now. I will explain through this chapter, okay? So introduction of SEBI. Now we are going to just look into the detailed study on SEBI, objective of SEBI, functions, powers, dematerialization and so on. Okay, so the first one is introduction. Let's go on with introduction. Securities and Exchange Board of India was first established in the year 1988 as a non-statutory body for regulating the securities market. It was made as an autonomous body by the Government of India on 12th of May 1992 and given statutory powers in 1992 with SEBI Act, that is 1992. Being passed by the Indian Parliament. SEBI has its headquarters at the business district of Bandra Kurla complex in Mumbai and has northern, eastern, southern and western regional offices in New Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai and Ahmedabad respectively. So from this paragraph we are able to understand like how the SEBI was set up and when it was set up and what are the places where we have the branches of SEBI. Okay, so just go on with this chapter. I think it will be very clear for you. So it is a regulatory body, as we all know. So if you want to invest into any stock exchange, you must get your company should be first registered with SEBI. Before doing anything, you must get registered with SEBI, then only you will be able to start the trading itself. So SEBI is a regulatory body, as I already told you before starting, like how we see in the business. For every business we have rules and regulation, isn't it? Like same way in SEBI also we have, if you want to invest any stocks or securities, you must abide to the rules and regulation of SEBI. Okay, so that is what is given here. So usually any act, if it is passed by the government, then it will be passed through the SEBI, that is any act in the parliament only. Parliament are the people who will be passing on the new acts and all, and then it will be implemented by the court. Okay, so with that only it will become like a rule. So like that, so it was implemented on 1992 and by the Indian Parliament it was passed, and the headquarters of the SEBI and all we have so all, and see it has the complex in Mumbai, has a northern and then eastern, southern and western regional offices. All the 4 places we have together, we have the branches in Mumbai, and then we have regional offices where and all, Delhi, Kolkata, Chennai and Ahmedabad. Okay, so the next topic that we have, initially SEBI was non-statutory body without any statutory power. Statutory means what? Statutory power means passing the rules which are passed through the parliament. Okay, so if you want to make any rule, for example any law is going to come implement, okay, it is going to get implemented into the constitution. At that particular time what will happen is they need to first go and approach it with the parliament. They have to accept it. After that only it will be made like a rule itself. Okay, so that is what is happening over here. See, initially SEBI was a non-statutory body without any statutory powers. However, in 1992 SEBI was given additional statutory powers by the Government of India through an amendment to the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act of 1992. The SEBI is managed by its members, which consist of the following. So this is one of the important questions. See, the organization structure of SEBI, you may get it for 1 mark, or even you will just get it like a short answer. Okay, so organizational structure of SEBI. See, the topmost organizational structure that we have is the director. We very well know the top hand will be the high power people, isn't it? So the first one is the director, and from the director we have 3 subdivisions, that is additional directors, joint directors, additional directors administration, technical directors, joint director system. So we have 3 subdivisions, but the first is additional directors or joint directors. The next one is additional directors, which comes at administration. Next one we have is a technical director, that comes under joint director. Okay, that is for a system. So under the additional director, that is joint director, we have deputy director, that is assistant directors. Okay, so under administration we have deputy directors, administration, assistant directors, and section officers. These are the people who will work under for the job, that is see, for the administration work, these are the people who are involved in it. The next one we have it for the technician, like system technicians. Okay, see, the deputy directors are there for the system, then assistant directors are there, then technical assistants are there. Okay, so this is the structure of organizational structure of SEBI. So next in this box we can see Securities and Exchange Board of India is an apex bank that maintains and regulates our capital market. It was established in 1988 by the Indian government, but got the statutory powers in 1992. It was actually it was established on 1988 only. Okay, but it got implemented only on which year? 1992. Okay, well, it plays a great role in the Indian economy such as it. So actually what happened, this you will get it for the short answer. What is SEBI? So you have to answer this one. Okay, this is the answer for the SEBI. See, what and all the activities of the SEBI: monitors the working of mutual funds, restricts the legal practices of the firm, plays a great role in the protecting the investors' interest, regulates the working of the stock exchanges, conducts audits, inspection, prohibits insiders activity. Okay, so these are the role which happens in the SEBI. Okay, so next one is objective of SEBI. So what is objective? So you would have already learnt in your previous lessons, or even in the 11th standard and all, you would have learned the basics of objective, isn't it? What is objective? Objective means obtaining the goal, isn't it? So what will be the goal of SEBI then? Let's see with this in a detailed explanation. The various objectives of stock exchanges are explained below. The first one that they have is regulation of stock exchange. So how they will regulate the stock exchange? The first objective of SEBI is to regulate the stock exchanges so that efficient services may be provided to all the parties operating there. So who and all will be the people, the parties who are involved in the SEBI? So we have investors over there, we have buyers over there, we have sellers, we have brokers, isn't it? So we have so many people involved into this transaction, isn't it? So these all people, for everyone, what should they have? They should have a proper service. If they don't get a proper service, will they be able to proceed? No, they won't be interested in investing, isn't it? So that is one of the first objective of SEBI. The first objective is what? It is regulating the stock exchanges. Okay. Next one, protection to the investors. So what will be the protection to investors in case if you are doing a business? Okay. So what you will do? What will be your motto? You want to earn profit. Yeah, that is your initial intention of any business, isn't it? But what will be your real interest when you are doing it? If you want to get more profit in your business, first of all you must attract your customers, isn't it? For that, what you must do, your work should be in a proper way, your dealing should be in a proper way, yes or not? So that should be there, isn't it? First of all you must attract the buyers, isn't it? Then only your business will grow. So like same way, let's see with this topic now. Protection to the investors. So what is protection to the investors? The capital market is meaningless in the absence of the investors. If the investors are not there, so this capital market will be what? It will be meaningless. Therefore, it is important to protect the interest of the investors. The protection of the interest of the investors means protecting them from the wrong information given by the companies in their prospectus. So with this, what we can understand? There may be even wrong information also into the company prospectus. So we must be protected from what kind of misleadings and all, isn't it? So for that only they are helping us. SEBI is helping us to do that. Okay, so reducing the risk of delivery and payment, etc. Hence a foremost objective of SEBI is to provide security to the investors. So what is the first objective of SEBI? The most important objective of SEBI is to provide security to their investors. So that is the most important objective of SEBI. So the next topic that we have, subtopic is checking the insider trading. It means what? So when you see in the SEBI, the big top handler, that is the topmost people in the organization, they will have all rights to monitor the confidential information about the buyers, sellers, and all the information, isn't it? So they may use it for misleading. So for that reason, they must check. The SEBI is the body who has to check all that, isn't it? So let's see this. Insider trading means the buying and the selling of the securities by directors, promoters, etc., who have access to some confidential information about the company and who wish to take advantage of this confidential information. This affects the interest of the general investors and is essential to check this tendency. Many steps have been taken to check the insider trading through the medium of the SEBI. Okay, so they must do, they must check whether all the people are genuine. So if they're doing any malpractice, it should be monitored. It is being strictly monitored by the SEBI. So that is what the checking the insider trading. Okay, next one, control over brokers. What is control over brokers? Who are the brokers? The brokers are the people who will help the people to buy or sell the securities, isn't it? The shares of securities. So it is important to supervise or check the activities of the brokers, isn't it? We need to supervise, we need to monitor them. Then only what they will do, they will not do any mistake or any malpractice will not be done. So we need to do that. The SEBI has to supervise all that, and they have to check the activities of the broker also. And other middlemen, in order to control the capital market, that to regulate their activities, it was necessary to establish the SEBI. In order to check the activities of the broker also, what is involved, what is required, SEBI is very much required for this also. Okay, so these are the 4 points that we have. Objective of SEBI is of regulation of stock exchange, protection to the investors, checking the insider trading, and next one is control over brokers. So the next subtopic that we have is functions of SEBI. So what and all is the work of a SEBI? Like what is the role of a SEBI? The function of a SEBI, isn't it? Function means like what and all the SEBI will be doing. Okay, that is what the function of SEBI. SEBI, that is Securities and Exchange Board of India, frequently abbreviated as SEBI, is a nodal agency which safeguards the interest of an investor in the Indian financial market. So these are the people who are what they are doing. They are protecting the interest of the investors. So if the investors are interested in investing, they are the people who are protecting the interest of them. Okay, the SEBI performs 3 key functions. What do they do? Quasi-legislative, quasi-judicial, and quasi-executive. These are the 3 functions which have been performed by SEBI. We'll see this in detail. Okay, it drafts regulations, conducts investigation and enforcement actions, and it passes the rulings and orders also. Okay, so next one, see, safeguarding the interest of the investors. The first one that we saw, quasi-legislative, it means nothing but safeguarding the interest of the investors by means of adequate education and guidance. SEBI makes rules and regulations that must be followed by the financial intermediaries like portfolio exchanges, underwriters and merchant bankers, etc. It takes care of the complaints received from the investors. Additionally, it issues the notices and booklets for the information, assistance and protection of the small investors. It means it will safeguard what? It will safeguard the interest. It will help them to protect their interest in investing, and even it will give adequate information about the education, about the guidance, all that they will give. SEBI makes rules and regulation, isn't it? We all know very well. They are the regulatory body. They will make rules and regulation. Okay, so that they have to follow. That must be followed by the financial intermediaries. Financial intermediaries is nothing but the people who are going to play the role of an intermediary role. Intermediate means middlemen. Okay, so they will play the role of a financial middlemen. So like portfolio exchanges, underwriters and merchant bankers. So portfolio exchanges means these are the people who are intermediaries over there, and it takes care of the complaints also which have been received from the investors. Okay. Additionally, it even issues the notice and booklets for the information, and even if you want to have any kind of information about the SEBI, if you want to know anything, you will even receive a booklet from the SEBI stating the information, assistance and all the guidance and everything. Okay, so that is also done by SEBI. So the next point is regulating and controlling the business on the stock markets. Registration of brokers and sub-brokers is made mandatory, and they have to abide by certain regulations and rules. Okay, so what they must do? They must regulate and they must control the business on stock markets. They are the people who, what they will do? They will regulate and they will control the business in the stock market. Then registration of the brokers and sub-brokers is made mandatory. So it is very much mandatory, means it is compulsory. They must do the registration, okay, and they have to abide by certain rules and regulations. So if you want to become a broker, you must register with SEBI. If you want to become a sub-broker, even broker and sub-broker both have to register with the SEBI. That is a mandatory rule. They must do it, okay, otherwise they can't become a broker with SEBI. Third point is conduct inspection and inquiries of stock exchanges, intermediaries and self-regulating organizations, and to take appropriate measures whether required. This function is carried out for organized working of stock exchanges and intermediaries. So what is this? What they will do? So they will conduct inspections and inquiries of stock exchanges, and then they will intermediaries and self-regulating organizations, and to take appropriate measures whether required, wherever it is required. This function is carried out for organized working of the stock exchanges and intermediaries. So this is very much required for them, and it is for the organized working. They want to do it in an organized manner of the stock exchange, and they want to do it in a proper way. For that they want all this, okay. So next one is bearing insider trading in securities. Bearing insider trading in security means so this is one of the functions in which they will bear the insider. Even in people who are already trading into one particular stock, if they want to trade more stock into that also is possible for according to the rules with the SEBI. Prohibiting the deceptive and unfair methods used by financial intermediaries operating in the security market. Prohibiting means stopping off, okay, putting an end. Prohibiting means stopping the deceptive and unfair methods. So they want to just stop the unfair methods used by financial intermediaries, which are being wrong methods which are being followed by the financial intermediaries, the financial middlemen. So those who are operating in the security market, that should be done. Next one, registering and controlling the functioning of stock brokers, sub-brokers, share the transfer agents, bankers, trustees, registrars, then merchant bankers, underwriters, portfolio and the managers, investors, advisors and various other intermediaries who might be linked to securities market in any manner. So what they must do? They must register and they must control the functioning also of the stockbrokers and all. Okay. So the next one is SEBI issues the guidelines and instructions to business concerning capital issues. So what they must do? They must issue the guideline and they must give the instruction to the business. So like how the capital issues are being solved out and how they must rectify the issue. If any problem is going to arise, like how they must overcome all that should be given by SEBI only. See, the separate guidelines are provided for the initial public issue and made by the listed companies, etc. It conducts research and publishes information beneficial to all the market players. So if you are a new investor in the market, okay, so your company is not known to others, isn't it? So at that time what will happen? Like we are not the people who are investing, they will not have the confidence that whether this company is a good company or the profit will be or not. So all those doubts will be there, isn't it? For that, what will do? The SEBI will help them to give a proper guideline about them, about the initial public issues and all. Public issues is nothing but the first time when a new company is going to launch, at that time they will give advices and all that. Okay. Next one is SEBI regulates mergers and acquisitions as a way to protect the interest of the investors. For this, SEBI has released appropriate guidelines with the intention that such mergers and takeovers won't be at the expense of small investors. So here, this next point is SEBI is going to be a regulatory body, isn't it? So they are just going to regulate and they're going to merge and they're going to acquisition. Acquisition means creating new things as a way to protect the interest of the investor. These all are done for what? Protecting the interest of the investors. Everything is done for whom? SEBI is actually formed only to protect the interest of the investors. Then only more people will come for investing, isn't it? So that is one of the main point. So SEBI has released appropriate guidelines also. Even for this, what they have done, they have even released a new guideline, so that that mergers, the new people who are going to just add with the other company, that is called as merging of the company. Okay, so when new company is going to join with the new other company, then clubbing of the company, that is called as mergers. And takeovers means one company is going to take over the position of the other company, so that company will that company will hand over the whole profit, everything. They will just give that name, title, goodwill, all that, they will be transferred to the new people. That is what the takeover. Takeover means selling of the company to the next person. Won't be at the expense of the small investor. So this won't be there at the expense of the small investors and all. Registering and controlling the functioning of collective investment schemes such as mutual funds. Then SEBI has created regulations and guidelines that should be followed by the mutual funds. The aim is to maintain the effective supervision and avoid any unfair and anti-investor actions. So they are the people who, what they are doing, they are registering and they are controlling the functions of collective investments also. Okay, so they are doing collective investments of the mutual funds, and then what they are doing, the aim is to only effective supervise and avoid any unfair and anti-investors, and then the anti-investor actions and all. Okay, promoting the self-regulatory organizations of intermediaries. It has extensive legal powers, having said that self-regulation is preferable. So they just want to have what? They want to have a self-regulatory organization. There must be a self-regulation and they must not have any kind of malpractice. Or these all rules are made only to avoid the outsiders doing malpractice and all. The functions of SEBI is to motivate the financial intermediaries to create their professional associations and manage harmful actions of their members. So if there is any harmful actions, they must manage it. And it can also make use of its powers when needed for protection of investors. If any powers are needed, that also can be done by the investors. Carrying out steps in order to develop the capital market by having an accommodating approach. So they can even carry out the steps, and even they can develop the capital market, and even by accommodating the approaches and all. So all this will happen. And then next one is provide appropriate training to the financial intermediaries. This function is great for healthy environment in the stock markets and also for the protection of investors. So they will provide what? They will provide training, and even the financial intermediaries also they will give. All this information is given to them, and this function is great for healthy environment. This is very much important for them. For what? For healthy environment in the stock exchange, and even for protecting the interest of the investors also. Levying fee or any other types of charges to carry out the purpose of the act. So they even what charges are being charged by the SEBI, that is also being mentioned, and that charges, that fee or any other charges which is there, that everything is carried out by the SEBI Act only. Okay, it has been done through the Act itself. Performance, that is performing the functions that may be assigned to aid by the central government of India. So what kind of functions are there that should be performed and that may be assigned to it by the central government? So next one is performing the functions that may be assigned to it by the central government. So what are the functions that must be assigned by the central government? That is also mentioned, that that is also being performed by SEBI only. Okay, the next point is the next one that we have is the powers of SEBI. So what are the powers of SEBI? Powers of SEBI means giving powers to the SEBI. So like what and all powers the SEBI is regulating, and it has been controlled by the SEBI. That is what the powers. Okay, the various powers of a stock exchange are explained below. So these are the following powers of the stock exchange. The first one is powers relating to stock exchanges and intermediaries. So first power is what? SEBI has a wide powers regarding the stock exchanges and intermediaries dealing in securities. It can ask information from the stock exchanges and intermediaries regarding their business transactions for inspection or scrutiny and other purposes. Okay, so the first one. First one is powers. The first power of the stock exchanges, what are the powers that they have with the stock exchanges and even with the intermediaries and all. Intermediaries are nothing but the brokers, the underwriters, all that. Okay, so the other agencies, all that are called as the intermediaries. So SEBI has a wide power. Of course, we very well know so many powers have been regulated by SEBI, and they has a very wide powers regarding the stock exchanges and intermediaries, and what they have the dealing in the securities. So it can ask information from the stock exchanges and intermediaries regarding their business transactions for inspection or scrutiny and other purposes. So what will they have? They'll have a wide power regarding the stock exchanges, and intermediaries dealing with the securities. They have a very big power, and they even have with the stock exchanges and with the intermediaries and all. Okay, so it can ask information, like how it can ask information from the stock exchange. They will ask information through the intermediaries, like regarding with the business transaction. For what? For the inspection and for the scrutiny of other purposes. Means, so if they want to check any document, they will scrutinize the document. So if there is any fault with the document, what will we do? We will check the document whether everything is in a proper way. So that is what is called as scrutiny. Okay, checking the document whether it is a proper document, valid document. That is what scrutiny. So all this is done by the SEBI. Power to impose monetary penalties. So what kind of penalties? What and all the penalties? Like how the penalties have been done. So that imposing the monetary penalties. Monetary means money related penalties. If you are doing any mistake, SEBI is a monetary body, isn't it, in stock exchange? So they will pay some, they will ask you to levy some fine. So that is also been done by the SEBI only. SEBI has been empowered to impose a monetary penalties on capital market intermediaries and other participants for a range of violations. It can even impose suspension of their registration for a short period. So if they want to do it, if they want to just impose some suspension, that also they can do it as per the registration. According to the act itself, they have the power to even pay, they can even put penalties on the capital market for the intermediaries if they are not doing in a proper way, and even for the violations, if they are not following the rules and regulations, even they have to pay the penalties and all. Okay, penalty is nothing but they must pay some money, or whatever the fine that they charge, they must proceed, they must follow that. That is what. So powers to initiate actions and functions assigned. So how they must initiate the actions and how the functions have been assigned. So powers to initiate actions. So how the powers have been initiated and even how the functions have been assigned. SEBI has a power to initiate actions in regard to functions assigned. SEBI is the monetary, the supervisory board, the executive body, where they have the power to initiate action, they initiate to just give the actions, and in regard to the functions assigned, what are the functions which are assigned, they have the power to initiate that. And for example, it can issue the guidelines to different intermediaries, or can introduce specific rules for the protection of interest of investors. So what they can do, for example, they can give it, the example is it can issue guideline, it can even help to give the guideline, and for the different intermediaries. Intermediary means different people, like brokers, stock brokers are there, then underwriters are there, then other people are there who are going to involve into this particular this kind of investing into the securities, or buying the securities, the stocks. For that, one all are going to intermediate the agencies, all that. So or can introduce specific rules for the protection of interest of investors. So what and all the specific rules are involved, that also they can do. So that is being done through this. Next one, power to regulate the insider trading. SEBI has power to regulate insider trading, or can regulate the functions of a merchant banker. Of course, they have the right to regulate the trading within the organization, that is within the stock exchange body, and they can regulate the functions also with the merchant bankers. It means they can even have the functions, what are the functions which have it with the merchant bankers, that also been regulated by the SEBI. So next one is powers under Securities Contract Act. So what are the powers which comes under the Securities Contract Act? So that is also monitored by them. So the next one is, for effective regulation of stock exchange, the Ministry of Finance issued a notification on 13 September 1994 delegating the several of its power under the Securities Contracts and Regulations Act to SEBI. So what they do for an effective regulation, in order to do an effective regulation of the stock exchange, the Ministry of Finance is issued a notice, has issued a notice on 13th of September 1994 for delegating means transferring the work from one person to the other, several of its powers under the Securities Contract Act to the SEBI. So according to the Securities Contract Act, they are doing it. Okay, SEBI is also empowered by the Finance Ministry to nominate 3 members on the governing body of every stock exchange. So SEBI is also empowered. Empowered means they are even the people who empowers Finance Ministry, the Finance Ministry to nominate. They are the people who are nominating the Finance Ministry, and even they nominate 3 members for governing of every stock exchanges. Okay. The next power that we have is power to regulate business of stock exchanges. So what they have, they even have the power to regulate the business in stock exchange, like how they will regulate the business. SEBI is also empowered to regulate the business of stock exchanges, intermediaries associated with the securities market, as well as mutual funds, fraudulent and unfair trade practices relating to securities, and regulations of acquisition of shares and takeovers of the companies. So these all are done to regulate the business of the stock exchange. Okay, so powers to regulate the business of stock exchange means nothing but SEBI is also empowered to regulate the business of stock exchanges, like intermediaries associated with the securities market, mutual funds, all the fraudulent activities and trade practices, all that being monitored by the SEBI only. They are the people who regulate, and they will monitor it, and they will get the issues sorted out. So all that issue, all the malpractices, all the problem which arise because of malpractice or unnoticed thing or fraudulent activities, all these things are being monitored and clearly observed by the SEBI, and according to that even rules are there by which they will follow. According to that whatever according to the amendment, the rule, they will be punished. Okay, so the next topic that we have is dematerialization. What is dematerialization? Dematerialization is a process by which physical share certificates of an investors are taken back by the company or register and destroyed. Then an equivalent number of securities in the electronic forms are created to the investor's account with his depository participant. It is nothing but, see, before 20 years or 50 years and all, if you see, that is maybe before 20 years and all, if you see, the stock exchanges, they were only doing it through the papers. They will have all the share certificate, all the deposits, whatever they do, that everything they will have it in a paper. Okay, that everything was made through a hard copy. But now it is not like a hard copy and all. Everything is made into a systemized. That is what we call it as the dematerialization. It means whatever the hard copy they had, it all the papers, all the share certificate and everything, that will be taken back by the people who have given, that is by the company or by the register. And what they will do is they will just destroy all those papers and all, and then they will update it into a system, and then they will dematerialize, and then they will update through the online. So this process is called as dematerialization. So when you just go to a bank, what you will see, when you just ask for the accounts, you will have different, they have a separate desk actually in the bank itself called as for creating a demat account. For if you want to do the stock trading and all, you can't do it in a normal account. Okay, so you need a separate account for that. That is called as demat account. Demat account is the account which is created for only for buying, selling and dealing with the securities and stocks for that. So if you have an interest in doing trading and all, then you must have a demat account. Okay, so that is the way like how they will do it. So here dematerialization means destroying all the hard copies and all whatever the papers, and then making it into a systemized way. That is what is dematerialization. See, electronic forms are created to the investor account with his depository participants. That is what it is. Next one is dematerialization is done at the request of the investors. Investors will first have to open an account with the DP, that is depository participant, and then request for dematerialization of certificates through the DP. So depository participant is nothing but when you want to just have a dematerialization, if you are the investor, then you must go back to your company and you must ask for the dematerialization. If you ask them, then they will destroy your papers and then they will make it online and they will give it to you. It will be more easier for you when you are doing the trading. Okay. For that you must have a depository participant. You must just have an account with the depository participant. Next one is purchases made by an investor are credited to his account and sales are debited. The securities held in dematerialized forms are fungible. In other words, they do not have any distinguishing features. Dematerialized shares do not have any distinctive numbers. All the holdings of a particular securities will be identical and interchangeable. So here, purchases which are made by the investor. So if you make any purchases, even that is being credited into your account, and even if you are doing any sale, that is being debited in your account. So when you purchase, what will happen? You must pay the money, isn't it? For that time the money will go out, so it is credited. When you make a sale, the money will come in, so it is debited. So that is what. So everything is done through online. So if you want to purchase, you can purchase, or if you want to sell, you can even do it through sale. So that is what we call it as a dematerialized. Okay. Next one, trading in dematerialized shares commenced on the NSE in December 1996, where Reliance Industries was the first company to trade its 100 shares in demat form. In case of the BSE, dematerialization of shares commenced in the year December 1997. So initially, the dematerialization and all, when it was started and like how it started, that is what is given here. So how the process happens. See, first the dematerialized shares were commenced on, that is NSE, National Stock Exchange, and it was on December 1996. And the Reliance Industry was the first company to trade with 100 shares, it seems, for the demat form, that is through online. And then in case of BSE is nothing but Bombay Stock Exchange. So they had a dematerialization of shares, and which was commenced in the year December 1997 only, it seems. So the Reliance company was the first company in the National Stock Exchange to do the trading through online. Okay. So this is what your dematerialization. So next topic we have is the benefit. The next topic that we have is benefits of dematerialization. The risk pertaining to physical certificates like loss, theft, forgery, and the damage are eliminated completely with the demat account. The lack of paperwork enables a quicker transactions and high efficiency in trading. So we know what is demat account, right? So when you're doing it through online, you need a demat account. I already explained to you in the previous topic. So dematerialization is nothing but when you just don't want to have any stock exchange trading through paperwork. So that is what dematerialization. Okay. So you'll be doing it through online. See, the risk pertaining to physical certificates, it means like when you get it like a paper, when you get your share certificates, everything in a paper, so you have a risk of getting lost or getting thefted out, or any forgery can happen, or any damage can also be happen when you have it for a hard copy. But when you make it in through online, no, so these kind of things are being overcome from this. That is one of the first benefit that we have. The next one is the lack of paperwork enables quicker transaction, of course. So when you're doing any transaction, when you do it through paper, no, it takes a long time, isn't it? So when you don't have it for the paper, and when you just do it through online, it's very easier for us, and it even saves our time, and it's more effective also. That is the second benefit that we have. The third one is trading has become more convenient as one can trade through computers at any location without the need of visiting a broker. Of course, when you just want to do it through manually, you need to go to that particular place, and then only you can do the trading. But here it is not required, because wherever you go, nowadays everyone, see, one is not going to do one particular work itself as a full time, isn't it? So people are there where they will do 1 or 2 or 3 works also. So what they will do, when they are in workplace, they can just go through online, and then they can just quickly do the trading. So that is one of the big benefit which saves the time for them, isn't it? That is the third one. The next one is the shares that are created through mergers and consolidations of companies are credited automatically in the demat account. So when you want to do it through when you are just any company is going to get merged with other company, or when the other company is going to get consolidated with the other company when they just when they're just stopping the business or anything. So automatically your trade is going to get over, and the money will get deposited into your account automatically. So that is also one of the big benefit. The fifth benefit that we have is, as all the transactions occurs through depository receipt, a trader does not have to communicate individually with each and every company. Of course, when you're doing through online, it is not required for the trader to go and contact each and every investor, isn't it? It is very easy for them. Everything's been updated online, and every information is very clear there. So it is very easy for them to do it, and it is very easy for it is very convenient for the seller also, isn't it? The investor, that is the seller also, to sell the securities. There is no need for the stamp duty for transfer of securities. This brings down the cost of transaction significantly. Of course, when you want to transfer the shares, you need to go and pay so many stamp duties and so many other you need to use another paper, then so many stamp duties are involved. It takes so much of time and all. Here it is not required because you are doing it through online. So completely it is through online. So here nothing is going to take place. So next one, certain banks also permit holding of both equity and debt securities in a single account. So here what happens? So even banks are also permitted for holding of both equity and debt securities in a single account itself. You are able to do it, it seems. So here even equity also you are able to handle, and even debt also, securities also you can handle in a one account itself. Okay, that is also one of the big benefit. Banks also provide dedicated and trained customer care officers to assist through all the procedures. Of course, when you are doing when you are opening a normal account in the bank, you need to go with the normal desk that we have. We have so many desks, so many people are sitting there, and they will be monitoring, and they'll be helping you for everything. But here when you want to open a demat account, a separate desk itself is there in a bank. Okay, so there you must go and contact them, and then you have to get the assistance. So that is also there. A personalized assistance is also there. A demat account holder can buy or sell any amount of shares. However, there is a limit on the number of transactions done using physical securities. See, when you're buying or selling in the demat account, you don't have any kind of limitations and all. But when you do it through online, or when you do it through physically, you have some limitations for that. Only these many shares you'll be able to buy for a one slot. So that and all is there. So that is one of the big benefit also. The next one can also choose to take a loan against securities which are held in a demat account by offering it as a collateral to the lenders. Of course, collateral means securities, isn't it? So you can even show this share certificate, or you can even show this that you have already invested as a collateral also, and you can take a loan. That is also there. That is one of the big things that you have it, the benefits of dematerialization. Okay, so the next topic that we have is what is the demat account. I already explained to you in the last topic what is demat account, like why you must open a demat account and everything. So demat account holds all the shares that are purchased in electronic or dematerialized form. Basically, demat account is to shares what a bank account is to money. That is like the bank account, a demat account holds the certificates of financial instruments like shares, bonds, government securities, mutual funds, and exchange traded funds also. So all this happens in a demat account. Understand how does demat account works, like how it is going to work. So that is like, you must just, a central depository is there, investor is here, depository participant is here. So you must just do the transaction within them. This is how it works. How to open a demat account? First, you must fill up an account opening form and then submit along with the copies of the required documents as a passport size photograph. You also need to have a PAN card. Also carry the original documents for verification. All these things should be there. So when you're opening a normal bank account also, you need all these things, isn't it? Like same way you need all these things, and then you must open an account. You will be provided with a copy of the rules and regulations, the terms of the agreement, and the charges that you will inquire. So all this is also you must see. So you must pay some money to start the demat account. During the process, an in-person verification would be carried out. A member of the DP staff would contact you to check the details provided in the account opening form. Of course, you will have a verification call also that you must verify. You must verify all the details once again. Once application is processed, the DP will provide you with the account number or a client ID. You can use the details to access your Demat account online. So once everything is over, once your details are updated into a system, and then you will get a ID, isn't it? A client ID will be given to you. So with that you will be able to log into your online trading account, and then you can just enter your account and you can do your trading. That is what is opening the procedure for opening a Demat account. As a Demat account holder, you would need to pay some fees like the annual maintenance fee levied for the maintenance of account, and the transaction fee levied for debiting the securities to and from the account on a monthly basis. These fees differ from every service provider called as depository participant, and while some DPs charges a flat fee per transactions, other peg the fee to the transactions and value and are subject to a minimum amount. The fee also differs based on the kind of transactions. In addition to the other fee, the DP also charges a fee for converting the shares from the physical to the electronic form or vice versa. Minimum shares. A Demat account can be opened with no balance of shares. It also does not require that a minimum balance be maintained. Yeah, you don't need any amount. A minimum balance is not required to maintain and all if you want to start a Demat account. What are the documents required for a Demat account? What you need for that? So you need to submit your ID proof, isn't it? ID proof means your photo picture should be there. That is your ID proof. Then your address proof. Address proof means your address should be mentioned on that particular proof. Maybe your voter's ID or maybe your driver's license, your ration card, all that is the address proof. So your bank passbook is also your address proof. So with a passport size photograph and the account opening form. So these 4 things you must have: ID proof, address proof, a photograph, and account opening form. All these 4 you must need to open a Demat account. Only photocopies of the documents are required for submission, but originals are also required for verification. Okay, so here is a broad list of documents that can be used as a proof. So here the documents are the major thing, proof of documents and all are given here. Proof of identity, proof, what and all you can give like identity proof. See, children, when you are taking as a proof of identity means your picture should be there. Okay, your proof, your identity, that is this is a person, the name of the person is so and so, your date of birth is so and so, year is so and so, all that should be proofed there. That is ID proof. ID proof means your picture should be there, your details should be there. That is your proof for identity, like a PAN card, your ID, your passport, driver's license, bank attestation, IT's returns, electricity bill, telephone bill. All this is a proof that you are a so and so person. That is your proof. Okay, so identity proof or address means your address should be mentioned, like a ration card, passport, voter's ID, driver's license, bank passbook, bank statement, verified copies. All these are like your proof for your personal proof. Okay, so with this lesson gets over. So children, I understand, I believe that you all would have understood the topics and all the keys which I have explained to you. So if you have any doubts, you can get back to me on the live section. Okay, so children, please come to the live section. So many doubts are clarified. Even I am retaking the topics also. So please come back to the live section also if you want to just acquire more knowledge. And be safe and do your exams well. Thank you, students.